In 1996, Scholastic began publishing Animorphs. Over the next 6 years, Katherine Applegate and her husband, Michael Grant, under the pseudonym K.A. Applegate, produced 54 main series books, several spin-offs, and inspired a TV series, graphic novels, and a cult following. We can't tell you where we live. We can't even tell you our last names. But we can tell you our thoughts and feelings on this series, book by book. I'm Miranda.
I'm Eddie.
And I'm Chris.
And we are the Anidorks. These may be kids' books, but we discuss dark themes and mature content. There may also be some explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
You want to do some banter? I can make it a little longer. I can make it 16.
No, let's try it. Let's do it live.
Let's fuck it. We'll do it live. All right. Oh my God, you guys.
This fucking book.
Oh my God.
First of all,
oh man, book 15.
I'm rewatching Evangelion with my dad right now, and like,
it's true.
Holy
it's true.
Shit.
I hear the theme song every time I come to.
Wait, I thought you were all watching Succession.
Kristen, we are. We're all watching. You think my mother would sit through Evangelion? She would just be like, Succession. What's going on? Why'd they turn into goo?
And here's the thing. She wouldn't be wrong.
No,
she'd be right.
Very fair.
Yeah.
Very fair assessment.
She's more of a Gundam fan. We established that lore back in... Dude, book 15.
Book 15.
Yeah. This
15
book.
books.
It broke my heart.
This is crazy.
It really broke my heart.
I cried early in this book. Like more than any other time. I just found it snuck up on me and just hit me like with one of those little clubs when you're trying to take someone's purse.
It was like right from the outset, it just punched you directly in the heart. It was like, we're going to do a cute little opener. Ha ha, tee hee, Marco's so funny. And then it's like
Amazon Cafe.
Yeah. And then do you remember every bad thing that's ever happened to Marco? Because he does.
Yes,
he does. And he lives with it every moment.
He's really, and more than any other character, he is historian minded. Like he's the historian of the group. He is like, we've been asking like who's been conducting these interviews, and I'm starting to wonder if we're gonna like see an old.
Well, he has the
Marco.
podcast. We know he has the podcast.
Yes. That's true. Big sexy.
Marco
news.
has a podcast. Is the
Marco
name of his
has
post-war
a podcast.
Yeah.
MHAP, they call it.
That's a remarkably. If for our new favorite listener, Christian Hibiki, that joke was for you.
Yeah.
If only.
Joking. He doesn't
one day.
listen.
He might.
Not yet.
He could.
Someday. Not yet.
You brought up that Marco can't forget. And it's interesting that Erek is there.
Have that.
He can't forget. Marco can't forget. He just can't forget. He can help me with this thought.
You know, but it is interesting that at the end of his last book, he was like, we can only live with what we do because the memories fade as time goes on. And then this whole book is about memories that didn't fade. For Marco.
Yeah, I think that's actually like, to say he can forget is more to say that his thesis statement of book 10 doesn't seem applicable to him. Like, he thought that maybe humans are gifted with the ability to forget, but that might have been wishful thinking for a young Marco.
Well, he underestimated just how traumatized he was going to get in this series. True. So.
And to be fair to Erek, he does literally remember exactly what happened in perfect detail, which is different.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did but it does remind me of the whole Tim Rogers, like remembering obsessively that OCD style, just locked into the minutia of every moment as best as, and probably a lot of reliving.
Monk. He's Monk.
Monk?
Who?
From the show.
From the show.
Got it. Yeah.
Monko. Not Monko. Monko, very different.
There is another show that I always confuse with Monk, and this is not going to make any sense. I shouldn't even.
Is it Walker's Texas Ranger?
Wings. Please don't
Chuck.
say Wings.
It's Chuck. I don't know what Chuck's about.
That's a different show.
But I think they were both on Spike TV, maybe.
No.
No?
Monk was not on Spike TV.
Monk was a network show.
Oh, I think I'm the Marco here, and I'm the one who has a really good memory. So,
as people who appreciate representations of OCD, just however calamitous and hysterical.
Is that what that was about?
Yes, it was about an OCD detective who used his powers for good.
Okay, wait, I just want to. Because we quickly went off. This book was amazing. I'm not going to get on because I've been listening back to our podcast before we released them. And I know every book I say, this is the best book yet. But this book was really, really good, which does not mean it's really, not the best book yet. But
it's really cute how much you escalate every
time.
Every book is just blowing your mind.
I will say
no, not book 12.
We said
what?
We said last book we thought it was like one of the best 2-book runs we'd had in a while. This is definitely one of the best 3-book runs we've had.
That I agree.
Like
I
ever.
think Tobias,
a little hyperbolic.
The Cassie book was great. You know what? And with that, I
think 4, 5, 6 was pretty good, but like I don't know.
7 rivals 4, 5, 6.
4-book run.
7. I liked 6, 7, 8.
6, 7, 8, very good. Yeah,
I thought the embodied experience of being yerked that we had to live through with Jake was one of the most incredible things.
Yeah, and then Rachel's second book, and then Axe's first book. Yeah, that was a dynamite.
Because Rachel's was when they see the Elemis vacation.
Yeah, look at it.
Look at it.
Look at it. Look at it.
So beautiful.
His trip to Pompeii.
This is where we lost our bags.
So,
3-sentence summaries.
3-sentence summaries?
Yeah, what we've all been trying to say here. We keep talking over
for the
each
past
other.
20 seconds. Yeah, you got it. All right. So I believe we've tabulated it, and Miranda goes first. It is 3 sentences to Miranda.
Fuck. I hate 3 sentences.
I know. It's the easiest and the hardest at the same time. White. The blank page.
In a surprise return, Erek King gives Marco and Jake some shocking information about a new Yerk plot unfolding on a nearby or under a nearby island, which involves Visser 1, Marco's mother. Period. Marco spends the whole book facing deep-seated trauma about the death and then not death of his mother, as well as his previous near-death experiences with sharks. Period. In the end, if you're having an issue with water pressure, you should probably call a plumber.
Yes, and that is what this book is about. Also, it's about home ownership. No, I'm just kidding.
Home ownership.
About renovation.
About
molding.
Book 14 and book 15 are both about plumbing.
That's true.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Take us away, Ed. 2 sentences.
I thought I heard, it's starting to rain here, and I thought I heard weather alarm.
Heard an ice cream truck.
That's so exciting. Can you make it? Go.
No, I can't.
Before I finish my 2-sentence summary, okay.
I would like a chocolate vanilla twist.
Twimst.
For Twimst it came.
Marco undergoes exposure therapy to overcome his fear of sharks by becoming one. Period. But when he becomes a shark, might he lose himself in the process? Question.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. 1 sentence. In this book, Marco asks a fantastic question that I find myself asking myself. This isn't going to be a good sentence. Which is, as I become myself and do more than I ever thought I'd do in a life, will I still be myself on the other end of all of it?
Very true. Very true.
And will I have to kill my own yerked mother? That last part was a joke. Canonically, I would like it to stop before the "and," but for the bit, I think it's good. What was the catch? The yerks are out there was the catchphrase for this book. Is that true? I believe
no,
so.
It was,
Sometimes you have
maybe...
to change more than your mind. No, that was a bad
That's
one.
right.
I'm getting the book.
The yerks are out there. You're right. You're right. I thought that couldn't be true.
That is
The yerks are out there.
absolutely.
It should have been the yerks are down there.
I was just thinking the same thing, Miranda. Yep.
The yerks are
The yerks down under. Dot, dot, dot.
yerks down under. Whoa, that's really funny.
Or maybe some
All
like
right.
under the sea joke. I love that we got another
Under
underwater
the
book.
yerks. Under
Yeah.
the yerks. Everything's better down where it's wetter.
Can I say-
And they're all jerks.
I'm getting a little ahead. The way that we got a backstory and a setup for Royan Island, only for that island not to matter at all. I thought we were going
It's
in that
true.
mansion.
It's going to be a Hitman level
I know,
someday.
I know. Yeah.
Like, Animorphs Hitman. We're going to make it. It's going to
The lore, just knowing that it was what's it called?
It was an old
A
bootlegger's
Bootlegger. I
house,
thought I
yeah.
wanted to say
And now
bootlegger,
it's
but I thought that was wrong.
crescent-shaped
Should we- I mean,
bootlegger
we'll-
island
crescent
owned by the
shape.
Marquez.
We're going to get to that content. We're going to get to that content today. Should we just launch right into
Let's
it?
just
Should we
do
go
it.
to chapter
Yeah.
1?
Yeah.
Chapter 1. Miranda, you want to read this one?
Sure.
All right. Go.
Our favorite little rascal Marco is spending his Wednesday afternoon with the rest of the Animorphs at the brand new Mega Mall in town. The mall has a popular new restaurant that is basically a rainforest cafe. One of the big draws to the restaurant is the live parrots on display. This seems like a health code violation. But the parrots lead miserable lives, being poked and prodded by guests. Cassie has enlisted Marco's help in executing a plan that she's concocted to save the birds. While Tobias and Axe keep watching Human Morph, Marco, Cassie, Jake, and Rachel follow the bird's handler as she brings the birds into the back for a cage cleaning. She's actually going to clean the stoops. When she
really?
leaves, it's a stoop cleaning for some reason. They don't put, that's the weirdest part, they're not in cages, they're just on stoops. When she leaves, the kids begin acquiring parrot morphs to enact their plan.
A
I
fun
want to go to the
opening.
Rainforest Cafe.
Yeah, really, really fun. Amazon Cafe sounds cool. I'm also going to say this is actually Cassie's plan, and it's stated very clearly.
Eddie fixed it. Eddie fixed it.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
This is one of those
Chris,
cases of someone just waiting. They're not listening. They're just waiting to talk.
Well, I will say I'm not sure I pressed. You're right. I'm not sure I pressed the right button on the timer.
I did notice it, yes. So, yes, in an early draft of this, Eddie said that Marco and Cassie had come up with this plan together, and Chris left a Google note that was like, actually.
Actually, I'm apparently Captain Actually, which we should know from 2 years of doing this podcast, but I'm totally tired of myself.
Have you ever
completely
seen,
honest.
wait, so just a quick side note that's not about, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but like, there was an episode of the game show Actually, which is done by Dropout.
I remember,
where
yeah.
there was an Animorphs question,
Yes.
and they gave Tobias's last name, and somebody wrote into the show and was like, actually, Tobias's last name is never revealed in the books. I made that name up in a fan fiction, and that's where you got it from.
Wow.
I do think I have strong opinions about that show because I think they're rather cocky to think that they can fact check accurately.
I know what you mean, but they at least they do, like, when people write in and call them on it, they have like a whole little section where they're
Totally.
like,
Yeah,
you know,
it's all very
totally.
lighthearted, I guess.
Oh, it is. Absolutely. So right off the bat, like these poor birds are like in line at the entrance to the Amazon Cafe.
they seem to be
talking,
like positioned all over, but there's one
Yeah.
at the line, yeah.
and there's also like maybe they're near the tables, which as somebody said, I think it was Miranda, seems like a health
Yeah.
code violation. I don't want a bird pooping on my burger.
Yep.
I've had that happen.
Really?
ate it anyway.
It happened next to me. It was somebody next to me was eating a burger and a bird pooped on it. We also get a really 90s reference here because some kid is like harassing one of the birds, trying to get it to say that Howard Stern rules.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. It's like, what is Howard Stern doing in a kid's book?
I don't know.
Was he that much of a figure that we just have to include him?
I don't know.
He was kind
huge.
of. I remember seeing him on like VHSs, a lot of VHSs at like the Hollywood Video or Blockbuster or whatever.
Yeah, I guess so.
He was in movies. He wasn't just like a radio person.
Well, no, yes, he was a household name. But
this
still.
chapter, though, is so 90s in general, though. Like the Rainforest Cafe, which we still have, but like, I'm sorry, the Amazon Cafe. We went to the new big shopping mall that they just built because the old mall is like too small. Like that's the most 90s thing I've ever heard.
It's such a shame too, because you know that mall did not last as long as they wanted.
No, I'm like, what do you think it is now? Like,
for some reason,
it's one of those Halloween stores that it's
the
like a
whole thing
Christmas
is a
Halloween store, a spirit Halloween. Yeah.
When I read Mega Mall, I just immediately thought of Mondo Burger from Good Burger when it opened across the street from Good Burger. Were you a Good Burger family? We watched that movie so many times.
We didn't see the movie when I was young.
I saw it on
orange
TV
VHS.
once.
The VHS was
no,
orange.
we did not own it.
Well,
no.
all of Nickelodeon's VHSs
That's true.
were
Really?
Rugrats VHSs were orange.
Rugrats, yeah, that was like a marketing thing they did.
But no, I saw it on TV because I did not get the VHS, but I remember they were airing it, and I was like, I'm going to finally watch Good Burger. But you know what? I think I liked Two Heads Are Better Than None better.
What's that?
That was like their like horror one where they end up in a haunted like inn. There's a guy who doesn't blink. There's like a whole. It's a very silly Keenan and Kel movie.
I'm gonna
I
watch
liked it a lot.
I feel like that was the lesser known of the two because I feel like Good Burger still has like pop culture references. Yeah.
And this was like a Keenan and Kel TV movie. I think. I don't think it was like a real movie. It was like
Got it.
For some reason in this chapter, they bothered to say that they're waiting for the waitress to go by before they can like morph the birds and hide them and get on the stands themselves. And they bothered to just point out that she's like a 20-something waitress. And I was like, I felt like attacked. It's like, imagine you move to the big city, you're working your first server job, and then what is about to ensues, which like, it doesn't even happen until chapter 2. I don't even remember how this chapter ends.
And you just know that people don't tip well at the Amazon Cafe.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, you know that.
Yeah.
One thing we had a little thing in the notes that somehow didn't make it to our actual notes, Eddie. So we might have to try to change that. But there's a moment where Marco says something to Rachel in a stage whisper, and Eddie left the note. Now, where did you learn about stage whispers, Marco? At theater camp.
Which is the plot of Anidorks, the musical, the Susical, a new beautiful.
And I said,
it's a wrestling musical called a Brusical.
And I said, Mr. 3 probably does a whole week on stage whispers because he's so used to thought speaking that the idea of different volumes of speaking is like one of his favorite topics.
It's a more dynamic art form, yeah.
Yeah, I know it's goes to foreshadow a podcast reaction to a book, but like, oh my God, I cannot wait to talk about how much of a theatrical maniac Mr. 3 is.
Oh
and
my
how
God, I know.
We get all this evidence at the end of the book of how others in the organization perceive him. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk about
I can't wait to talk about fucking Hork Bajir with little rockets strapped to their
Yes. Diving suits that I'm convinced
I want to
Mr.
know what
3
it looks
made.
like.
Yeah, this
think he
book
made
is
them for-
insane.
Yeah.
What do we need to cover in chapter 1?
It's all set up, I think.
Jake makes a deep in the throat grinding noise that he apparently makes sometimes. I want to know what that's about. Is it a grudge noise? Is it like is it like a...
That's exactly what I imagined.
Are we sure he's
Or
not...
does he just mean like a...
Yeah, I thought that was very concerning. And it's not a sound that he's making for the first time. Marco...
No, that he makes sometimes.
He's not alarmed by it because it's something Jake does.
Yeah.
So why haven't we heard about it before?
I think the only other thing we really need to hit is that Marco reads Rachel to filth.
Yes.
In this chapter, he's like, Rachel is tall and blonde and beautiful and totally without fear. Now, sure, way down inside, she's also insecure, scared by her own inability to fit in, and way too pressured to live up to her own high standards. But all that stuff is way down inside. Way down so far that if you ever tried to reach it, she'd have sliced and diced you before you even got close.
I think there's a little bit of projecting here, because what is this book about, if not how deep down inside of himself Marco is?
Yeah.
Where no one
That's
can
true.
reach him. Like,
But also, I think Marco being the most aware of what's going on with other people, like, it's giving someone put him in therapy after his mom died. You know what I mean? It's like,
very
probably-
giving that, yeah.
he's probably
It's very
still
therapy
in-
coded.
therapy, right? Like
Probably,
it's been like
yeah.
2 years. Is that right?
It doesn't. I feel like we would have heard about it if
Yeah,
he
you're
was
right.
actually in therapy.
It's not
so
good
my
to be,
guess would be,
as an Animorph to be in therapy.
or in the '90s, it was probably more stigmatized.
Yeah.
No, maybe not. But
he
I
probably
would
just, like,
imagine
has to meet
Charisse-
with, Charisse.
It's Charisse
Yeah.
giving him that good life advice about how to cope and deal.
I was going to say he probably has to go to, like, the dead parents school counselor support group.
That too. Can you believe that the entirety of Marco's second book was ruined because he had a crummy haircut, and that's all anyone could talk about? Like, we would have gotten so much more depth out of him if he didn't have that to react to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also with this Rachel comment, I want to flag something that I think is interesting that I thought about a lot, and I'm wondering if you two thought a lot about this book. How Marco and Rachel are actually very similar, which I don't think is a thing we talk about a lot in terms of, like, in certain ways, but
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
how they're very different. And there's like a specific moment where I feel like Marco is comparing himself to Rachel at the end without saying it. But I also think in terms of, there are certain ways that I think they're very similar, and I feel like this book would be interesting to talk about those things.
Yeah, that got underlined by this book big time for me. I feel
Yeah?
like,
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was like on my mind.
It's very much about, like, I see the connection where it's like he's talking about Rachel a lot because they're both people who sort of, like, hide what's going on inside themselves, but they project very different images.
They have a strong sense of how they're being perceived.
Right,
yeah,
but, like, the
yeah.
way they choose to combat it is, like, Rachel tries to fight everything and Marco tries to deflect everything. It's like they are similar deep down, but outwardly express that in very different ways.
Right,
I also-
the two genders.
I also
fight
think
and
they're
deflect.
I also think that
Fight
they
and
are
parry.
Marco. Rachel's been here, but I feel like Marco's becoming the other person who's very willing to do whatever it takes for the
I
cause.
know I can make it through
Yeah.
if I hold out.
Do you think he has the little jean jacket? Do you
Yeah,
think that's Marco?
yeah.
Yes, it's so to be the best. The best that I can. All right.
But I feel like Marco's ready to kill. Like, he's going to deal with a lot of conflicted emotions in this book, but I feel like killing is not. That's not like.
You know, more than any other character, he has a soberness about his reasoning in situations of high stress that I really like. I would hope I wouldn't panic, because he just doesn't. I don't know. Oh, we're over time. Okay.
Oh yeah, no, we gotta.
Should we get to the payload of the birds?
Yeah.
Should we
Let's do
talk
it.
about the
We
birds?
should talk about the
Okay.
birds.
All right. So I'm gonna press right here in River City. I'm gonna press down. Okay. I think down's the right button. Okay. I'll read this one.
Oh,
Chapter 2.
I think it just.
Marco, Cassie,
okay.
Jake, and what was that? Are you going to talk over me this whole book?
I thought it cleared
what
the
you're gonna
time. We're okay. We're good. We're good.
We're good. Marco, Cassie, Jekyll, and I'm just being an asshole. I'm so sorry. Jekyll.
No, we don't
Marco,
actually want to say
Cassie,
that.
Jekyll each morph into a different parrot, and the morph descriptions are fucked in a way reminiscent of the earliest books. They all hide in the cage as parrots, having already hidden the real parrots in a well-ventilated cupboard and are
Conveniently
brought
placed.
out into the restaurant. Then they begin saying outrageous things to the customers. Try some fried booger strips, food poisoning, botulism. After a few minutes, the manager
Yeah.
The managers decide that displaying live parrots was in fact a bad idea. Mission accomplished. But then after the gang is morphed back to their human forms and begins to leave the mall, Marco suddenly spots a familiar face waiting for him. Dun dun dun. Guess who it is? It's Erek the Chi!
I did not
from book
think
10.
Erek would be back this soon. I was so shocked. I was like, whomst?
I know.
Yeah, back in
know.
book 10, I feel like I was like, he'll be back again, right? And you were both like, I don't think so. Not anytime soon.
I was really hoping, and then I was like preparing myself. It's like, no, you're going away to summer camp. We're gonna have different friends now. Like,
I'm hoping that now going forward, Erek the Chi and Ahort Bajir are kind of this growing roster of cycling, like returning characters that we can bring in and out.
Yeah.
I hope that's the case.
big time.
The morph description is really rough. It's very gross. He talks
Very
about
colorful.
the organs. Very colorful, yes. That's actually, specifically true, that they all morph into parrots of different colors, and he talks about the different beautiful colors.
Well, beautiful except for Jake, who is white as snow.
Dead white.
Dead white.
Dead white.
And then Rachel gets a very different review. Fascinating mix of yellow and orange.
Fascinating.
Fascinating.
Fascinating is a bit weird. It's a bit like,
That
I
adjective's
didn't
doing a lot
love
of
it,
heavy
but I
lifting.
didn't hate
Yeah. Fascinating.
There's like a critical
Fascinating.
detachment there. Like,
They mention morphing technology deadens pain, which I think we did get before once. Like, I feel like there was a mention that, like, no one would do it if it hurt as bad as it should hurt, so they had to find a way to do that.
Yeah,
But
you're totally
I feel like they
right.
don't bring it up a lot. And I can't remember what book that was in.
I do think it is cool though, considering his dad's like an engineer, like that there's just this detail of thinking about it as a technology. And you're totally right. I mean, I think it was actually probably book 10 where we get that for the first time, because that's where we had his Marco mass floating out in Z space, right? And it's just cool to look back
hanging
over
out
it
there.
because I don't think at the time I appreciated how different his lens was, how much he was like perceiving things as an engineer in a way.
Yeah.
Like he was already
Yeah,
thinking
you're
of
totally
things
right.
that way. Yeah, because he was talking to Axe and Jake was around for that.
they were
Yeah.
birds flying to camp, I think.
Yeah.
I have a question.
I have an answer.
I hope so.
Miranda has it.
I can't promise it'll be right.
If morphing can deaden pain, would there ever be
Could you use it while getting a tattoo? Absolutely.
would it ever be advantageous to morph to kill pain rather than, because morphing already heals you, but would there ever be a case where you would morph just for the pain?
Okay. So
I mean,
it's
I
like,
would.
I need to slow down the steam engine. So I need to throw my hand into the gears, and I'm going to morph a little bit before I do it so I don't feel it.
I would just
I
I would just morph it every time I'm on my period.
Yeah.
It's
I did see
That's
a
so
Reddit
good.
post like,
Oh my God. Hold on. So this whole plan is they're going to take over the birds, then they're going to sit on the perches and they say the bad things to make the restaurant seem bad. I love this plan. It's very theatrical. It's very it's about marketing. It takes us back to Deal and Dan and Price Cup
Price Cup
Polly in a
Polly,
way.
I know.
It's about
I'm like,
commercial
why didn't-
culture.
they should
I
have
know-
called back to her.
I
They
know
should've.
that Tobias, wants to be with another hawk, but now that he has this opportunity to get a parrot morph, maybe he
Yes.
should consider widening his horizons in the dating pool.
Agreed. Why not a polycule of parrots?
A parrotcule.
A parrotcule, if you will. That was very good, Miranda. But also, the shit that they say.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to steamroll over this, but I am really excited about this. I
Oh
had
shit,
this
no, Polly
vision.
already worked because Polly's a parrot.
Oh shit, Polly was
Fuck,
already
Polly
in the
with-
damn
Polly
polycule.
with
We
two
fucked
L's.
up.
Polycule.
Damn it.
Ah!
Shit.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, hold on. We need to punish ourselves for another 12 minutes.
this
'cause
why
I
they didn't
can't-
let Tobias
Did
morph
we
into a
leave
parrot?
that joke on the table back in book 3? Did we fucking leave
We were
that joke?
distracted by the truck ship.
Jesus Christ. Oh my God. We are such boys. Holy shit. We were just we got our Tonka trucks. Not to gender all of us, but
I don't think
Jesus
that's
Christ,
what
how
any
did
of us
we
were
miss-
thinking when we met the
Also,
truck ship.
I like that your idea of what boys want is Tonka trucks exclusively.
That's as
Just
far as
Tonka
I
trucks.
understand it. I never got it. I never fully understood, but that's when you put a Tonka truck in front of them, they spend hours.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Miranda said.
Eddie, it works on you.
Eddie, we've left you alone for several hours without you noticing, just by leaving two Tonka trucks in front of you, and you just got to make the vroom vroom noises.
Mhm. That's how we got the pizza at your birthday without you remembering. Like, when did you go out to get pizza?
Before
Christmas.
Not that we need to be diverted anymore, but the children who want Hess trucks are different than the children who want Tonka trucks,
Yes,
right?
yes. The children who want Hess trucks want
Very
to
seasonally
collect
minded.
stamps.
They love Santa.
They love Santa. They love Coca-Cola. Okay.
Why
so-
didn't they bring Tobias? Is it just
Because he would have had to morph back into a bird to acquire the parrot.
Thank you. That's actually
Yes.
That's the only
Was it
reason.
answered in the
Yeah.
book?
I don't think they said it, but they mentioned that Tobias and Axe are in human morph running, like, backup. So, like...
I'm just still hurt about not getting the Polycule team. Like, I feel like we've betrayed our audience and ourselves and our identities and our personalities and
Yeah.
our lives. What I do want to hit, though, everything they say would make a great menu for this restaurant, because they really they come up with a lot of gross shit to say, and I want to see it printed on an Amazon cafe menu. Like, I want some graphic designer to make this menu for me. like you would see at a place, like, laminated as a placemat, and it would say all the things you could get, and it would say Amazon burgers made with cat meat, spaghetti with hair, Amazon cafe nachos with toe jam on top or on the side.
What about
What
Earl?
is toe jam?
Now with botulism and food poisoning, enjoyed the fried booger strips. That's a good menu.
Disgusting. That just set off
It's
my
a
gag
good menu.
reflex.
And then they just start
Is that
being
what finally
really...
said it? Oh, no.
And then they just start being mean to the restaurant manager directly.
But not as mean
so
as
sorry,
Chris
Ed.
is being to me. This
I'm
is like
so sorry.
going back to you telling me get the dicks out of your mouth when we were children.
I'm sorry. I'm
Chris used to
sorry,
say that
I'm
a lot.
sorry. I was,
All right, so then we meet Erek the Chi. They do successfully. The manager's like, they're telling everybody I'm wearing a toupee. We can't have that. That's private information.
right.
They're just going to start shouting his social security number next. You know, they gotta get him off. I do love the well-placed, well-ventilated cabinet that Cassie is like, they're safe in here. Like, we just have this cabinet.
No
we can
animals
put the
were
birds
harmed in the making of this
Yes.
chapter. That's
Yeah, that really stood out. I'm glad they clarified. And in fact, that happens again
Yes.
later in the book.
No,
where they're
no.
like, hey, we're not killing animals.
No. I say
That one does get hurt.
yes, and I say Cassie is a hypocrite and a liar.
I agree.
Okay,
I agree.
I'll read
I
chapter
agree
3
with
just so we can keep it moving.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, let's do it.
You ready?
Okay. Yep. Erek reveals he has important information to share with Marco. He would like to speak with him alone, but Marco insists that Jake be included. Erek conceals the three of them in a hologram and reveals that Visser 1 is back on Earth overseeing a top-secret Yerk project in the waters surrounding Royan Island. Very important island. Just off the coast. The Chi don't know what she's doing there, but it must be important if they brought in Visser 1 to handle it. Marco is horrified. Visser 1 is, of course, infesting his mother. Erek warns Marco that humans are often deceived by outer appearances. She may look like his mom, but she is in fact one of the most dangerous forces in this war. Marco must be careful. To make matters worse, the Yerks are guarding the underwater base with a new species of controller known as Leerans. But Marco isn't listening. He's too upset by this news about his mom and by the implication of Erek's warning, so he storms off. When Jake catches up to Marco, he asks if Marco is okay. Erek didn't mean anything bad by that, Jake says. Marco says that he knows what Erek meant. If things come to a head during this mission and Marco was confronted by Visser 1, would Marco be able to destroy his own mother? He admits that he's not sure of the answer to that question.
This is just a whole ass chapter of
It's
like,
just a whole ass chapter. It's really a lot, And I'm happy that Jake was there because I think Marco needed the support. And I think it's smart that Marco knew he needed that.
Yeah.
And
He says, it's important not to have secrets in a healthy marriage. And he's right.
he's right.
The one thing I do want to say, Erek, gives them a little, thumbs up. He's like, we hear you've been doing, good work. And he's like, oh, rescuing the 2 free Hork-Bajir was a good thing. They may prove to be the seeds of something very powerful and good. You may have begun the salvation of an entire race. Here's my problem. I know that she have spies everywhere, but, how the fuck do they know this? I'm not given enough information about this because, in my mind, there literally would have to have been a Chi present close enough to see the to see Ketanjara at the bottom of the ravine and be able to see with his Chi eyes that they weren't dead. Because otherwise that just
Erek
means...
with the Chi eyes.
Because otherwise it means that, the rumors going around that Visser 3 is stupid, but, I don't know. Do any of them have a reason to believe that they're not dead? I just don't know. Or are the Chi scanning? Did they find the hidden valley? I don't understand.
Know everything. I don't like that omnipotent touch because we already have the Ellimist interfering. And I was going to ask. There's a couple moments in this book where I wondered if there was some kind of either active tampering or maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe it was something being fudged or some detail happening that I wondered if you guys were on that interference wavelength.
I didn't see it. Really,
no, it didn't come to mind at least. But yeah, when we get to the moments, yeah.
Yeah, maybe it'll hit me.
We know that the Chi have infiltrated the Yeerks and that they're undercover there. Are we supposed to think that there's only 6 Animorphs? Are we supposed to think that the Chi have somehow bugged the Animorphs? I don't know.
I just don't know. That's what I'm saying. That in particular for them to know about, I get that they would know about them escaping, right? Because there was that big, hubbub about the escape. They were sending out so many taxons, tracker taxons, all that things. I know that the Chi would know about the escape, but how they would know that the Animorphs freed them and they did not, in fact, fall to their deaths, I don't have an explanation.
Here's the other thing, that the way that Erek brings this up and the way that Marco and Jake don't really react, what if one of them's just keeping in touch with the Chi? Maybe there's some conversations happening.
Yeah.
I mean, he said he gave them a phone number, right? There's an open line of communication.
And it makes sense that maybe the Animorphs even told the Chi about the 2 free Hork-Bajir so that they wouldn't have to, maybe they can keep an eye out on them. And they don't have to watch it. None of this is said.
That's actually,
but it's just reading between the lines.
It would make a certain amount of sense.
Yeah, they don't seem surprised.
It would also it would surprise me if he would seeing Erek be surprise worthy to the point where he would say I haven't seen Erek since. It's there. I think you're right, Ed. I think there's some idea that they've been in some kind of contact, even if it's not deep.
Yeah.
And it seems, and the Chi, they hint that they are also doing some kind of operations against the Yeerks as well, and trying to do information gathering. And so I don't know. Yeah, I think there's something there.
Yeah.
When they have this conversation and they're in the mall, they do this sort of get smart cone of silence thing where they're just oh, we need oh yeah, what does he say? He says, oh, yeah, they're talking about what they've been doing against the Yeerks, and Erek goes, fine, or how are you doing? And he goes, fine, and we know through our sources that you have been doing good work against our mutual acquaintances. He lowered his voice. I think we'd better have some privacy. And then he snaps his fingers, and his hologram, which makes him look like a human child, extends and makes 3 people look like 3 children look like 3 mall security guards.
Just having a chat.
Having a chat.
Honestly, I don't understand how this works. I feel like anyone... Yeah. What if someone wants to ask the security guard where the Spencer's is? And they walk over?
Then they're just NPCing. Yeah. They're just totally NPCing.
And especially given... So we know something about Erek's force field is that Erek's hologram is a force field, so that you can't just find out by touching him.
His
so
metal, right?
did he extend the force field out? Like, can these cops even be approached? Is there just
it must
a
be
bubble?
like whatever battery he's got for the day, he's got to run home after this, I'm thinking. It's like you set your phone to like 3 times power for whatever reason.
Yeah.
You said you had your flashlight on. But it's such a cute little thing that they're doing here, and it totally foreshadows something that happens later in the book when we get to Royan Island. And it's just like, we're dotting our I's, crossing our T's. We're setting up our Chekhov's force fields and holograms and whatever, as it were.
Also, someone absolutely saw him exit the hologram.
Yes.
And like he mentions that someone looks really fucking confused because she just saw a kid walk out of a bubble where 3 adult men are
and that's
talking.
horrifying because that could have been a yerked person.
Yeah.
I feel like
good.
the series has been lowering our expectations for how much they're covering their tracks. Like, I feel like 14 ended in the
14
parade.
was like, yeah.
Like, I feel like they're just not worrying about that as much.
Yeah, I think you're right. About that.
We should talk about the Leerans.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, no.
Well, we don't
just
get a
know-
lot about them
Yeah.
here. Here we just
don't
get
get a
they're
lot about
using a
them
new
yet.
species called the Leerans. That's all we know.
That's right. We actually get more about the Leerans in the next chapter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, should we go to it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Miranda, take it away.
Chapter 4. The next day, Marco goes to meet Axe out in the woods. He wants to find out what Axe knows about Leerans, this new species of controllers. But as he travels to the woods, Marco is still very much in his head about the news that his mom is back on Earth. Jake is the only person who knows that Marco's mother has become Visser 1. Marco believes that if the others knew about his mom being Visser 1, they would pity him. And he doesn't want pity, he tells us. The others would think of his circumstances as tragic, and he refuses to accept that his circumstances are tragic. Obviously, Marco is heartbroken about his mother, and he admits that comedy only works at a distance. It tends to break down whenever things are personal. But still, whenever possible, Marco chooses to view life as a comedy. He would rather keep the more tragic elements in his life at a distance. Upon reaching Axe, Marco catches Axe up on everything that Erek King told him. He asks what Axe knows of the Leerans. Axe explains that they are banned on the Andalite homeworld because they have psychic abilities. At close range, the Leerans are capable of reading minds, and the Andalites don't like this because they are enormously protective of their technological and military secrets. Not to mention that they're very prideful and, well, the idea of a Leeran invading their privacy is sort of embarrassing. But Axe is confused by this news. The idea of Yeerks infesting Leerans. It makes no sense given that a Leeran controller would be immediately found out by a free Leeran given their abilities. And yet, a Leeran controller would be very useful for discovering spies. Spies such as the Chi, or the Animorphs. Tobias flies over to Axe and Marco, having finished hunting. Marco wonders if it's just a matter of time until everyone learns his secret, until his cover of being cool and detached is blown.
What a wild chapter.
Yeah.
It's a heavy one.
It's a really good one-on-one between him and Axe.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see him having this curiosity, having this, like, drivenness to understand something and being like, I'm going to go to Axe and get the answer. Like, there's something so emotionally intelligent about, like, limiting the exposure and just talking to Axe and not doing it in the group. Like,
It's also, I think, just so much. Marco is such an interesting character in this series, and maybe the most interesting of our group of kids, because he has secrets that we know that the other Animorphs don't, which feels different than Axe, who has so many secrets probably.
So many secrets.
That we don't know, and honestly, maybe K.A. Applegate doesn't know yet.
Yeah,
Like,
that they just, like, make up when
Yeah.
it's convenient.
yeah.
Like,
But Marco, just the fact that only Jake knows at this point about his mom, just like it creates so much pressure around him, and also I think in a way that's feels only true with Rachel, like just like very emotionally complex as a narrator. Like having to write these summaries, I feel like the only time I have to say, here's what's going on with Marco internally and here's what's going on with him externally is with Rachel, where there's like this duality like that. So, yeah.
I do want to read this bit Marco has about, he says he doesn't want their pity. He says, I'm a joker. I'm a comedian. That's how I deal with life. See, I've always believed that to some extent you get to decide for yourself what your life will be like. You can either look at the world and say, oh, isn't it all so tragic, so grim, so awful? Or you can look at the world and decide that it's mostly funny. If you step back far enough from the details, everything gets funny. You say war is tragic. I say, isn't it crazy the way people will fight over nothing? People fight wars to control crappy little patches of empty desert, for crying out loud. It's like fighting over an empty soda can. It's not so much tragic as it is ridiculous, asinine, stupid. You say, isn't it terrible about global warming? And I say, no, it's funny. We're going to bring on global warming because we ran too many leaky air conditioners? We used too much spray deodorant, so now we'll be doomed to sweat forever? That's not sad. That's irony. Note to Alanis, that is ironic.
This book, these are not 13-year-olds. These are not 12-year-olds. These
Yes,
are
that's
cranky
totally
older.
a KA.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that soda can reference is a reference to a movie. I forget I forget the name of the movie.
Oh, yes. I've seen this. I saw it in like my Western civilization class.
Exactly.
It's like
But it's like
what
highly-
happens.
The gods must be
highly-
crazy.
The Gods Must Be
Yes.
Crazy. That's what it's called. Thank you.
It's like a short film.
Yes. How did you find it?
I searched soda can falls out of airplane.
Nice. Amazing. But yeah, I think it's a very like Western lensed view of that sort of thing. And also this is a very Western lensed view. So, the reason why they're fighting over that desert is because they live there.
Yeah.
It's
like, but I don't. And I wouldn't want to.
Well, the U.S. also fights wars over the places other people live.
Exactly.
So-
Yes, that's very true.
That's exactly.
Yes.
Exactly,
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
We're on the wavelength.
Yeah.
No, you said it. That's important to verbalize. But it is still like, it's very like, there's something to it though, even though it's like not how kids talk, like there's something weirdly parental about it. Like it feels like K.A. and Michael Grant are trying to like say something.
Which the botulism, like the jokes that they were making in the restaurant also did. And I think this continues all book. Like there is a little bit more of, it's not just
There's a real
Tobias
grown-up
who sounds
energy.
like a grown-up. Yeah.
Yes. But we also talked about often how Marco is a parentified child.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the next things he goes on to talk about is part of making this decision was because he saw what the death of his mom did to his dad, and he knows what it did to him inside too, and he's choosing not to let anyone feel about him the way he felt about his dad when he saw his dad going through that by refusing to externalize any of that emotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, he has had to think about this in those terms, you know what I mean? Like, he's got the words for it because he's thought about it a lot.
I think, well, I know we're trying to cut how much we read from the book, but I actually think this book in particular.
This is a good chapter to read.
Yeah. So I want to, picking up actually like right after where you left off, Miranda. See, I saw what my mom's death did to my dad. And you know what? There wasn't anything funny about it. And I know that for a year, I cried myself to sleep most nights looking at her picture. I still feel like someone blew a hole in me, a hole that will never heal, a hole that I don't want to heal because I don't want to stop hurting for my mom. I don't want to get over it. I kind of assumed that Marco's character wouldn't be so much about grief just because I thought that was like a starting place for his character, but not something that like the books would live in like they do here, especially like in this book. Like I'm really appreciative of how much that defines his character.
Yeah.
How
because
fucked up it is that he had grief and now his grief just has this extra layer because he still kind of lost his mom. His mom's still kind of dead, but she's also someone out there walking around that he can look at. It's
yeah,
almost
and
like a
he
zombie.
mentions that really fucked him up because he thought he had processed it to some extent at least, even though he's going through this whole and I totally vibe with this whole like I really love this description of almost wanting to stay in your pain because it feels like you're scared of forgetting if you let go of the bad thing, because if the bad thing's the only thing left, if the only thing that's left of my mom is that she's dead, sort of, then letting go of the pain I feel over her death is admitting that I'm not going to make new feelings with my mom. And like,
Yeah.
I just so get that. And it's so...
There's going to be no healing as long as he's fighting in this war and his mom. Like, it prevents him from having a normal cycle of grief. Like, he can't... Like, he actually has to deal with this, or something has to happen in order for him to be able to move on from this. And he's 12. Like,
I will say definitely in another, it doesn't feel like a kid said this moment. He says something about the irony gods. When they're talking
about it being his religion.
It feels like a New Yorker comment or some comic.
And he says, and Marco and Axe is like, and this is funny. And Marco says, absolutely. If it was happening to someone else, it would be hysterical. And it's just like...
That's the thing too. Like, from the two sections you guys read, there's one sentence, and I don't remember either of you reading it. I apologize if you did. But right in between the two, did you read it?
No.
Okay. But humor kind of breaks down when the tragedy gets up close and personal. And then the whole tone of the chapter just shifts.
Yeah.
And, like, we're still juggling, like, talking to Axe. Now we're, like, kind of venting this. And the emotionality of Marco's demeanor starts to shift. Then Tobias walks up, so he has to put on that performative thing. So he starts talking about how it's sort of a Marco religion thing or whatever. They're, like, and, like, he gets really jokey and really performative towards the end. And it's a great chapter. It's actually like, it's a great chapter.
Yeah.
It's like a really excellent
chapter. He says, funny boy
chapter.
Marco is destined to look pathetic. My friends will look at me and think, poor Marco.
But that's not said aloud. That's what he's thinking.
No, and that's when he then says, never fails,
yeah.
The irony gods. They wait for the chance to twist your life around.
Yeah. But I do think this book establishes like a tenuous connection that might be dropped in the next book, but you could be led to believe that Marco and Tobias are starting to find some way to connect to each other, I think, from this book.
There's some interesting things about how Marco behaves toward Tobias in this book that I think make me want to go back through with like a finer lens and look for some things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah. The Leerans, I think we should just maybe talk about this.
Yes, we should hit the Leerans. A new alien just dropped, the Leerans. They can read your mind.
They're from a water planet. A sentient race of amphibians. Axe doesn't actually seem to know what they look like. He just has like this like abstract idea. Like he's learned about them in the school. Yeah.
And so the base is probably underwater, so it's easier to work with them. Like it sounds like.
Yeah,
like
that's
they're
sort
like,
of where
we'll give you a hospitable environment. Or whatever.
But they definitely do sort of touch on the idea that like having Leeran controllers is not useful in large numbers because you can't infiltrate the Leeran planet with Leeran controllers, but having a few Leeran controllers on other planets could be extremely useful.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because of their close range psychic ability. They do have to be within a few feet of you.
This is not mirror wave tech.
Our animorphs are going to have to be very careful in
not to be confused with our animorphs.
Yeah. In their approach, they're going to have to be careful in their approach because, yes, these Leerans could.
Yeah, and they would know straight away that they weren't Andalite bandits.
Yes.
They could reveal that they are actually just human children. They could.
The stakes are very high. Yeah. Yes.
And if anyone listened to them, they'd be fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So now we move into chapter 5, right?
Yeah.
Just want to say the thing that because if anyone listened to them, the Animorphs would be fucked. It would be really, really terrible if these were a very serious looking, very trustworthy appearing species of creatures, right?
Wow, that's a seed you're planting for a long time from now.
It would be, we could only hope that they would be silly looking.
They shouldn't look like some sort of weird Cthulhu frog.
Yeah, that would.
Which we haven't been told yet.
Fingers crossed. That would be great.
Fingers crossed. That would really ease the. Yeah. Chapter 5. Saturday morning, the gang meets in Cassie's barn, and Marco explains everything. Everything, except, of course, that his mom is Visser 1 and has a career. He's going to try to conceal that secret as long as possible. Marco tells the Animorphs that the site of the underwater base, Royan Island, is a small, private island about 20 miles off the coast, too far to swim. So they'll need to fly out to the island, demorph, and then morph again into dolphins. What books are we reading, you guys? But Tobias doesn't have a dolphin morph. And when it's suggested that Tobias acquire a dolphin morph at the gardens, Tobias begins prevaricating and babbling on the topic. Cassie quickly deduces that Tobias is scared of water. Cassie assures Tobias that once he's morphed into a dolphin, he'll never fear water again, because he'll probably die in the process. But first, he needs to acquire a dolphin morph. So the gang goes off to the gardens. We're all going so that Tobias can buy a suit.
Someone hacked my chapter descriptions there.
I did edit it because you left out my favorite part.
The use of the word prevaricating.
No. Ass.
So this chapter is short but cute. It's very, I mean, Marco rattles off a description of the island, and she says, and he says it's shaped like a crescent moon, and Rachel's like, very poetic, and he's like, it is a quote from the guidebook. I did my research. God damn it.
And he regrets that he doesn't have a witty comeback to get Rachel in that moment. Like, he's like, damn it, I should have had something.
Yeah,
she
he's
really
like,
got my ass with that.
He's like, I'm so upset about all this mom stuff. I'm not going to be making jokes. They're going to know. They're all going to know. He's
all gonna
so
know.
certain that everyone's going to figure it out.
I can't make jokes while my mom isn't or will be possibly dead or free. I'm busy, Rachel.
We also get an idea that this idea that Tobias maybe isn't as excited about morphing now that he has his power back, that he's still a little hesitant, maybe. Mm-hmm. Although we do sort of dismiss that with maybe it's just about the water thing.
And his fear about water is specifically about drowning, which they're like, you'll get a dolphin morph. And he's like, isn't that a mammal? Like, don't they breathe?
Breathe?
Jesus Christ, can't we do it doesn't solve his problem.
No.
It's still.
But there seems to be this idea that somehow the fact that he's now a bird and he lives in primarily in the sky, that somehow putting him in water will put him especially out of his element.
Yeah.
Seems to be where this is coming from.
Rachel does speak up for him. She's like, so what if he's afraid of water? Are any of you going to fucking do anything about it? He can not like water if he doesn't want to. You don't have to like water, babe. I got you. Water sucks.
I hate water.
I'll beat up the water for you, babe. I got your back.
She starts punching her plastic cup of water she has.
Yeah, there's so much good banter in this book. And
really,
just another one of those books where every character seems to have the dynamics between all of the characters feels really strong and really clear. We also get Jake shouting out Tobias, telling him he's their little secret weapon. He doesn't say little, but it really feels like a callback to the Jake that made a bed for Tobias in a drawer. I missed that dynamic. And
See, I was thinking more the Jake that took over his job 2 books ago and had to realize how hard it was.
Yeah.
I think I wanna live in that space with the drawer though, because I think in another world, the Yeerk invasion goes a little bit slower, and Jake gets really into making mid-sized doll houses for Tobias so he can feel normal.
You're a person still.
No, hang your coat on the right by the door. I put a little hook there for you.
We should also point out that as a hawk, Tobias did manage to free them from the truck ship in book 3.
It's true.
With a Dracon beam. He managed to not get killed and free them free the rest of the Animorphs who were certainly going to die. Who were making peace with their death. And he cut a whole ship open with a Dracon beam as a hawk. So
I wish I could say that the making peace with your death Toy Story 3 moment was unique in this series.
No, every book,
every other goddamn
Can we
chapter
also
at this point.
Point out that it seems like after Tobias exposed that fatal flaw of the truck ships, that the Yeerks completely recalled those ships because
we haven't seen a truck ship again.
We haven't seen a truck ship in ages.
We haven't heard why did they need the water? I don't remember, but they haven't talked about it. They're just whatever.
It was for their their ship in space. It was
Yeah.
for the mothership.
It was for the mothership, but they didn't. I don't remember why they needed the water.
was very
and they have
important
not
in that book.
explained yet, like how they're doing it now.
Because at the time, they were like, this is a huge development. The Yeerks need something. They need water. They were saying that. And
Yeah.
I feel like, I'm only thinking of this as I'm saying it out loud, I feel like they pivoted from that to Kandrona rays, where like
Yeah.
they were like, oh, maybe it's more interesting if they need Kandrona rays rather than they need a glass of water. Like,
Well, I mean, they'd already established the Kandrona rays. I don't know why they threw the water in at all. I think they just needed a heist.
but that's what they
Yeah.
focus on after that. That's what the Yeerks need. But they made a
Yeah,
whole
we
point.
knew about the Kandrona rays before then, but we didn't know how to stop it. But then we found out about like the
the
Kandrona
Eggs Tower.
Oh,
Yeah.
book 2 was
Yeah.
Kandrona rays. That's right. Yeah, yeah. Because they learned that when Rachel was spying on Chapman and.
In our
Chapman, yeah.
game of Animorphs Monopoly, though, the Royan Island is going to be like out towards Boardwalk.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Yeah,
expensive.
that's going to be an expensive property.
Yeah. Well, right now the Marquez family owns it, and they'll come up again.
The two blue properties will be the Eggs Tower and the Royan.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And then they end the chapter with the classic "Let's morph," and
Yeah,
then a
yeah.
couple more lines about how seagulls like to eat garbage.
Yeah, they're going to
but
morph
it really it's
seagulls
mostly
again,
"Let's morph."
and I'm so over it. I know.
I know. I also don't see why we have to.
You don't seagull why?
Yeah, I don't see why. The book moves. There's no problem with momentum, but the idea that we have to go, like, it is like going to get Tobias a suit. Like, it really is. Like, we go to both the gardens and the aquarium. Like, we make 2 separate stops.
I know. And
true.
and for this to be like a slapsticky thing does not fucking work. It's just horrifying. Maybe I'm old. I might be old.
There is
But,
a
like-
lot of this of this section that is good, but like the slapstick section is definitely not the highlight.
Yeah.
Do we think that? I don't know why I'm feeling like a little bit. Maybe it's just because we usually record in bigger chunks. It feels like we usually end on like more of a climactic moment in the book. But you think it'll be?
I wouldn't worry about it because
really
this
depends.
isn't necessary. Yeah, it really doesn't.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're just pausing
book-
for.
Part one
yeah.
of book 14 ended also with "I have to pee."
I think it's just
It might
it's
be the
more
new
about
thing.
what
Part
it's
one's always
realistic
gonna
to
end
do
with
in a
"I have to pee."
scene.
No.
Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense.
Thanks for listening to Anidorks. We'll be back soon with lots more to say. Until the Andalites return, or at least until next time. See you soon.